Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the mornings. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Wednesday, October 29th, 2025, and I'm battling my way through the first cold of the season. We had college boy number 2 home from break during the last week, and you know how it is at colleges. This is the elite knowledge that they pass around to one another and bring home with them. So we're all sort of suffering with this one, and it was highly questionable early this morning, but as I spent more time on my feet, I figured I could struggle my way through today. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but Greg Bovino is on hand and can relieve some of the pressure. There's a lot of tea steeping. There's a lot of water around. I'm doing the fluids. I'm doing all these things, and we'll do our best to make it through today. But I think you can tell that I'm affected by it. But, you know, what can you do? There's too much news. You can't stop at this point. The president, what's-his-face, the orange guy, is overseas still. You know, one of these extended trips. He's making a tour from country to country. They've all figured him out, of course. He is in Korea today. And when I say they figured him out, I mean that he's landed in Korea and they have... I'll tell you the way Reuters reports it anyway. I thought they won the headline award here. I left open my Google News search page for what's going on in Korea, and there's a couple different takes on the headlines, and I'll give you a quick roundup of them. I've got USA Today, I think, with the one he'll like very much. In South Korea, Trump gets a gold crown and highest state honor. And, yeah, that's what they're doing with him. That's the basic story of the day. They have, as I said, they figured him out. They give him a gold replica of a state treasure, a gold crown, really kind of dangerous. We've just had the whole no kings thing. South Korea has just survived their own attempted autogolpe, as they say in Spanish. And you'd think they'd be a little bit more sensitive to our problem, but it isn't their problem. They just need to be able to get along with this dumbass, so they're like, all right, give them a crown. They took care of their own business. The rest of it is up to us. The Washington Post goes within South Korea, a crown for a U.S. president who loves glittering gifts, and that hints a little more clearly and more directly at what's going on behind the scenes here. The actual scene itself, of course. And let's see, CNN, Trump and South Korean officials strike agreement on trade deal details and final something or other. I stopped at that point. That's where the preview cuts off. That's the most flattering and most sane washing of the offerings. The New York Times says Trump meets South Korea's president, live updates, etc. So nothing there. No hint that there's anything weird except for presenting me with the difficulty of trying to pronounce the name of a Korean city I'm not familiar with. Lastly, and the first one that actually pops up, Reuters. I kind of liked their direction here. At least the preview headline. I think if you click through, they may have a different headline running at the moment. No? All right. Well, the full headline reads, South Korea welcomes Trump with its highest award, a golden crown and ketchup. I thought that probably gave us some idea of what was happening here. Holy cow. Pardon me. And I love the inclusion of ketchup. And as others pointed out, the exclusion, the omission of the Oxford comma, which makes us wonder whether the award is called the Golden Crown and Ketchup. That's entirely possible. All right. Well, Greg Dworkin has plenty to round up as well. I have a couple of fanfares that I've been waiting on that Scott provided the other day. And I was going to save this one for tomorrow because it would be the last day before Halloween. But now the show itself is in danger. And so we'll have to use my Halloween one, which would have been a day early anyway, from one of the movie openings, Renaissance Pictures, I think it is. And I don't know whether it was a horror picture, but very Halloween-y, I thought. Greg Dworkin is here. figure, and he's alive. He's not even undead. I don't know. He's not very scary in that sense, but it is, after all, Halloween season. Good morning, Greg.
Good morning. I won't be undead till Friday.
Right. That's the day for it.
Yeah, that is the day. So I'm sorry about your voice.
Me too.
I am pleased to hear. I only caught part of your intro. It was something about you being deeply moved that I was going to be on the show or something
Yes,
like that.
exactly.
I just heard the deeply moved part, and I assumed it was about me.
Yeah. I don't know. That's how deeply moved I was. I forget already. But yes, right. And or it was either that or I should be removed from the show myself.
Deeply. You should be deeply removed.
Right. Very
That's
strongly.
what you say.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, very strongly.
All right,
thank you for your
lozenge
attention to this matter. I hope you're better by tomorrow, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see.
Why do you have one of those amazing teas that people send you?
I have had like 3, and that's another part of the problem. Hurry up, do the show already. I think
I need to excuse myself for just a moment.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah. So it's been a lot of tea, and I skipped the coffee. Didn't want to add the dairy to the routine today. I got enough going on inside my head here. I don't need to add more.
Yeah, not just your head. So,
right.
Abbreviated pundit roundup today is entitled Shutdown Showdown. And of course, I have some procedural questions for you, because I always do, because I don't understand any of this stuff.
All right.
For example,
Adelita
Grijalva is not yet a member of the House of Representatives.
Yes.
Because Mike Johnson refuses to swear her in because it's closed.
Right, sort of. Yeah.
Cerrado. It's sort of part. So then I read this story that says from the Hill, bill to fund SNAP and shutdown introduced in House, Mariannette Miller Meeks.
Oh, yeah. Her.
Puppet Master Miller Meeks on Friday introduced a bill to fund the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program as the government shutdown threatens payments of the food aid in some states. Mostly red states are going to be hit harder than mostly blue states. But this quote from reporter Emily Brooks says, additional GOP co-sponsors on House SNAP funding and shutdown bill from Representative Triple M. Companion to the Hawley bill in the Senate, because Senator Hawley is also introducing a bill to somehow get around this Republican shutdown, but includes Representative Tom Kaine, Brett Guthrie, Ryan McKenzie, James Comer, and of course Max Miller, and these are all, I think, Republicans.
Okay, I think you might be right about that.
So on the one hand, what this tells us is they're losing, and they're trying to figure out a way out.
Yes.
And they're really upset because their whole strategy was they assumed Democrats were going to fold. Frankly, we did too. But, they didn't.
Yeah,
they
we
aren't.
Didn't have to have a strategy. They did.
And so now they're getting a little desperate because they realize it's their own people who are doing that. So I just thought I would point out that don't believe all we're winning and we're not going to do anything and we won't move. Of course they're moving. But my procedural question is, if the House is closed for Adelita Grijalva, how is Representative Triple M introducing bills?
The regular way. It's open enough to swear her in. But I guess Johnson's excuse, his line has been, well, we'll swear her in as soon as the House is back in regular legislative session. Instead of this, they're having every once in a while a pro forma session so that they comply with the constitutional requirement that they not be out of session for more than 3 days without the permission of the other house. They're just holding brief sessions in which they open up, have a prayer, do the Pledge of Allegiance, allow people to introduce bills, and then just shut the place down for the day. They could absolutely
but why do they have pro forma
days.
Sessions when they can deem that a single day is like 365
I guess they could
passages
do that too,
of the sun around the earth or something, whatever.
They can do that. The easier way is just to have somebody.
Wait a minute, you can't do this. This is illegal.
Minutes.
I'm suing. The earth goes around the sun. Well, go ahead. Sue me.
Right. It'll take you 10 years to get your suit heard, unless you're a Republican and you'd put on the emergency docket, in which case the Supreme Court will hear you tomorrow. But they're just having pro forma sessions so that it doesn't look like they're actually out of session. They've been out of session for like a month and a half. But
Yeah.
every 3 days or so, they open the place up for 5 minutes, insist they're open enough to do that so that they're in constitutional compliance, but not open enough to ask her whether she swears to uphold the Constitution in 5 minutes. So
I
it's just,
still don't
it's
understand
a
why the
game.
House won't deem that this is still daylight savings time. And by the way, it's
Well, it is.
August
They can, I guess they could do that, but they need to set. The Senate doesn't have
for
to accept
legislative
that.
purposes.
I mean, you could tell. I guess the Senate could then say, no, it isn't. So I guess manipulating the calendar doesn't help them a great deal when the Senate has its own calendar. But yeah, constitutionally, they can't be out of session for without the permission of the other house, the agreement of the other house. And I assume the other house, the Senate, would not agree if they were asked. So instead, they just every couple of days do 5 minutes worth of work, but insist that it's not enough work and not serious enough work to also swear somebody in. It doesn't make any sense at all. They just are saying that. That's all.
Right. So the House is not in session except pro forma, but the Senate is.
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly, the Senate voted yesterday 52 to 48 to overturn President Trump's 50% tariffs on Brazil.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
5 GOP senators break ranks to vote against Trump. Collins
Mm-hmm.
of Maine, McConnell of Kentucky, Murkowski of Alaska, Paul of Kentucky, and Tillis of North Carolina. Tillis went on record as saying, this is a terrible tariff. Tariffs are stupid. I'll vote for every other one, but not this one.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
obviously he still wants a job when he gets out of the Senate.
Yeah, maybe ambassador to Brazil.
Right. Meanwhile, this shutdown is bothering Susan Collins. You may be surprised to hear she's concerned. I'm very concerned about air traffic controllers. I had 2 flights this Sunday, and last Sunday averted at the last second. One of them actually touched down and then took back off. And in all the years I've served in the Senate, I've never had that happen. Or as many commenters have pointed out, oh, it affects you. Now it's important,
right.
huh?
Yes. True. I think the play she was going for originally was, actually, a lot of my constituents also take airplane flights, but she did end up making it a little too much about herself.
Right. Well, we'll get to that main race in the elections part of this discussion.
Okay.
But let's talk about rules. Since we're talking about rules, let's talk about federal rules. Let's talk about legal rules.
No. Oh boy. All right. Are there?
Federal judge rules. You'll like this one. Because I've only been attuned to even looking at stuff like this because of you.
Uh-huh.
Federal judge rules U.S. attorney in California has been unlawfully serving in that role. Judge J. Michael Seabright found the Trump appointee Bilal Essayli unlawfully assumed the post after resigning in July as interim U.S. attorney for the Central District of California. It's the largest district land-wise.
Oh.
We know land doesn't vote, but it's the largest district land-wise in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And the judge agreed that it's really frustrating because this may not make any difference, but he can only do what he can do. And he's going to revert back to being the first assistant or top assistant or whatever, and then that just means that, he's still going to do everything he does. He's just not officially the U.S. attorney. And the judge said, I can't do anything about that. He can't have the title.
Yeah. Well, Trump and paperwork, man. This is, I think, the 4th or 5th U.S. attorney that it turns out they just didn't do any of the work that they needed to do to get somebody in the job permanently. They put somebody in as acting and let the time run out and then didn't do anything.
Used to be judges believed in precedent.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if there's a precedent for Trump is known to appoint people irregularly, then what may have legs is the countersuit against Lindsey Halligan.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
For pursuing James Comey and Letitia James, because they're saying, she's not really the attorney. If she is, she did a lousy job, and if she isn't, she shouldn't be doing this.
Right.
And if she is the attorney, she ought to be disqualified because she was leaking grand jury stuff to reporters.
Hmm.
And any way you look at it, she really ought not to be bringing this case, and it's obviously a hit job, and she needs to go. But
Yeah.
now this precedent for courts deciding, yeah, he really does have a habit of.
Yeah. I
There's
mean,
a movement. There's a whole a list. There's binders full of
oh
binders
yeah.
of folders of Trump doing this wrongly.
Yeah. Lindsay Halligan, what's her name? From
Alina
the other
Baba,
one. Yes, Alina, right. Right. So Alina Habba in New
Haba.
Jersey. Uh, John A. Sarconi, III, as the AI reads it, up in the Northern District of New York. There may have been another one. Now we got one in California. So there's four improperly appointed U.S. attorneys that we can think of off the top of our heads, and probably if you checked into, if you took the list out, 90 something districts, and checked up on how many of them have been confirmed by the Senate and how many of them are in an acting or interim capacity, and then
Right.
took a look
Reminder:
at the
these guys
calendar.
have to be confirmed by the
Yeah,
Senate,
right.
and he's
And
going around them
they're
by
not
just
doing
making
that.
interim.
Yes. Now, they saved themselves from real trouble in California by, although this guy in his capacity as whatever he was, acting U.S. attorney, that's right. And I haven't had a chance to play the soundboard isn't up, but acting U.S. attorney, signing indictments and, doing the regular work of the court. They were smart, I think, or just stupid lucky. But the normal procedure would be you'd probably have multiple attorneys from the U.S. Attorney's Office signing indictments, not in the main because you think you're unqualified to the position or are illegally occupying it, but because there are several of you attesting to this and you'll all be working on the case. So he had some other attorneys from that office also sign it. So there are some valid signatures for people who validly hold their office on those indictments. The indictments are saved. Not the case in New Jersey, where some have been dismissed, and not the case necessarily for Halligan, where her appointment is being challenged by a couple of the defendants she's going after.
Right, because she doesn't have anybody who's
Right, she's the only one
signing
that
off
signed
on it,
those.
because in fact everybody quit rather than sign off
Right.
on it.
Yes. Oh,
And
I
the
almost
judge
forgot
knows
that part. Yes, that's all part of the background. Nobody professional would touch this thing. You did. And that would normally be okay if you had actually been, nominated correctly or confirmed by the Senate to this position, but you're not. You're just, at this point, a stranger off the street. You can't sign indictments.
And so between Letitia James and James Comey,
Mm-hmm.
they're making the case that, look, Judge, Patrick
saying,
Fitzgerald,
look.
I guess, is Comey's lawyer.
Yes.
If she's not appointed or agreed to by the Senate, confirmed by the Senate, she's not legit. And if she is legit and she's the only one that signed it, she spilled the beans on a grand jury. And either way you look at it, she's not qualified and throw this thing out.
Yeah.
And they're stuck because, I don't know what they're going to say.
They're going to say,
because
shut
both
up,
of those things
get in
are true.
jail. Yeah. Right. They have huge problems. And good, fine, terrific. It doesn't work in all the cases. But in some of the most high-profile ones, they just really don't care about doing things.
What difference
correctly.
does it make? The youth say they just ignore? Well, I'm getting to the poll stuff where it really does make a difference. But
okay.
I want to do a more important case where they've also lost in court, because people say, well, they always win. We can't do anything. No, actually, they lose in court pretty much a lot.
Yeah,
almost all the time. And here's another one, which I think is a lot more important. Adam Klasfeld from All Rise News, where he's the chief editor.
All Rise. Yeah.
Breaking last night. Trump's activation of the troops in Portland remains blocked. You may recall in this case, a lower court said you can't do this. There's no emergency in Portland. And then a 3-judge panel from the Ninth Circuit, which is enormous.
Yes.
The Ninth Circuit has 26, 28 judges, something like that. A 3-judge panel said, no, he can do it because he's Trump.
Yes, they do that.
And Portland, or whoever was appealing it, said, listen, can you just bring this 3-judge panel, can you bring it to the entire Ninth Circuit en banc?
Yeah.
But the Ninth Circuit is so big that unlike other circuits where that means all the judges
Right.
get to weigh in, the Ninth Circuit has 11 of the 20 some odd judges because otherwise it would be too big to be manageable.
A randomly selected larger panel reviews things and stands in for a limited en banc review.
Right. And remember, I'm not a lawyer. Don't play one on the internet, so check everything I'm saying. But I believe what happened is that
AI
the lower
says you're
court
right.
said that Trump can't do this. There's no emergency.
Right.
The three-judge panel of the Ninth Circuit said, yes, you can. And the en banc Ninth Circuit was appealed to. They don't have to take this.
Right.
But they did.
They did.
And when they did, they said, yeah, no. Let's go back to the lower court standing on this case, and we'll review it.
Yeah.
Which to me, as a non-lawyer, as a layperson, means, so you thought what the three-judge panel did was bullshit, and or you thought at the very least the lower court had it right, and or the plaintiff has a good chance of winning on the merits. In any way you look at it, we're not letting this stand. We're going to review it, and we're going to let the situation that Trump wants remain blocked. That's the important thing.
Okay, right, correct.
So that means that a pretty good chance the Ninth Circuit's going to say, yeah, this is illegal. What are you, stupid?
Yeah, I mean, that'd be among the circuits most willing to do it ordinarily, but he is running into problems in places even where you wouldn't anticipate it. So,
well, things are changing. Even in areas where you wouldn't anticipate it, he's running into problem. I think Matt Kaczmarek ruled against him recently.
Yes, he did.
But at the same time, and that's down where, Texas?
Yes.
Or those
Amarillo.
parts. But the Ninth Circuit, the Ninth Circuit in California is not as liberal as it used to be. There've been a lot of appointees since.
Yes, he's trying very hard.
That bring it back to merely truth as a liberal bias style court. So you can't count on any court doing anything these days. You have to wait and see what happens.
Right. But occasionally it does crop up, and sometimes they even survive appeal review as well. Greg Bovino had to appear in court yesterday and got a bit of a dressing
Not just
down.
yesterday.
Yeah.
Not just yesterday. He's got to appear every day and explain what's going on. He's basically got an ankle around his an ankle around his handcuff. Right? And handcuff around his ankle. He's got to show up every day and explain what's going on. He's like on probation.
Yeah, or so it is said. I don't know whether yesterday didn't count because he was already there in the morning. But the judge said, one, you need to put on a body cam. You personally. Like, that's pretty interesting, too. But that's because he inserts himself into the mix all the time and gets physical with people. So you got to have a body cam on. And she asked him, do you have one? No, ma'am, I don't.
Well,
yeah, and she says, well, how about this? We say by Friday you get
by Friday.
one.
You stop off at Radio Shack and pick one up, okay?
I'll give you a couple of days to do it. But also, you need to come here to my courtroom at the end of every working day and account to me for how you're doing with complying with my orders. I don't know whether she said not counting today, because I didn't see anything about that in the report, although I did wonder. I mean, several hours later, he could have beaten up a number of people between then and now. Did he have to show up yesterday? Nobody said that he did, so I don't know. Question mark. Right. But today will be the first day after which, if he doesn't show, the judge will say, I have a problem.
This is going to take a little while, so let's start moving to, what does it all mean to the American public? What do all Trump's shenanigans and malarkey and blarney and all that sort of stuff mean to the general public? And let's start with perhaps right now the most important note about what's going on, especially if you're Canadian. It's not just the World Series, it's the tariffs up there. So let's have a little video from Harry Enton. You don't have to play the whole thing, just the first minute or so.
Okay. Let's switch over to the...
starts out loud, I warn you.
Okay. Well, that's Harry Enton.
Has Trump push for tariffs been successful in the minds of the American people?
No. No is the simple answer. I mean, I think that Americans have moved more against tariff than any other major Trump policy that he's been pushing during this second term. What are we talking about here? Well, why don't we just look at this? New tariffs on imported goods. You go back to November of 2024, the majority, 52%, were in favor of it. Look at where we are now in 2025, in the fall of 2025. 60% of Americans are opposed opposed to Trump's tariffs. So we're talking about a 4-point margin in favor, switcheroo, now to a 20-point margin against. And of course, there was all this news coming out of the World Series, right? Canada tariffs. We're not just talking China, we're talking Canada and tariffs. And get this, we're talking about just 36%, as I look at my little footnote here on the bottom, who support new tariffs against Canada. So the bottom line is this. If I were advising President Donald John Trump when it comes to his policies, I'd say step off the tariffs, at least from a political point of view, because the bottom line is it doesn't sell with the American people. It's one of the largest shifts that we have seen during Trump's second term in office.
Yeah, I mean,
Wow. Okay.
Okay,
There's
now-
much more. But yes.
Yeah,
that's
there is more,
excitement.
but I'll give you a hint of what that was. You don't have to play the whole thing. It's
Oh,
30.
okay.
It's
yeah,
3 minutes
I'm
and
happy
32
to do it,
seconds
but yeah,
long.
that may run into problems.
That's a little too long. I don't want to
Okay.
get you in trouble. But remember, if you're a politician, like, I don't know, Andrew Cuomo or Eric Adams,
Yeah.
and you want to go after your opponent who is leading in the polls, let's say Zoran Mamdani.
I don't. He's a very nice guy.
But that's the thing. It doesn't work to try to hit him and go negative if you yourself are being seen by the public, the voting public in your particular constituency as being awful, horrible, and they really dislike you. It doesn't
that's
work.
bad news.
You have to
a
build
lot
yourself
works
up to be a little popular before you go after your opponent if you want it to work. That's just like politics 101. Well, Donald Trump, minus 10 rating in the American public's view, and Canada plus 49. That's the part that Harry Anton
We
was
usually
getting
don't
to in the
poll
rest of the video.
Canada. Yeah, all right. Well, he's very
So
excited.
why
about
aren't the Canadian tariffs sticking? Because people like Canada and they don't like you.
Yeah, Canada should run for office.
Hi everybody, this is Scott Anderson, your summary guy. Were you looking forward to an egalitarian democracy free of bigotry, misogyny, racism, and greed, where people of different appearances, belief, and heritage had a right to live without fear, and everyone could expect a basic level of health, stability, and safety throughout their life? Well, too bad. The plain fact is that we're heading in the wrong direction. And where we once had a voice in such things, increasingly we don't. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. However, if you're looking to join people who understand today's issues and can intelligently address the reality of today from your point of view, you can join us at Kagro in the morning. As you know, there aren't many of us out there, at least compared to them. We need to stick together, and by that I mean send us money. That is contributions to patreon.com, secure, reoccurring contributions. Those contributions keep this show on the air and us together. We've been through a lot together. The temporary loss of the presidency, we hope. The temporary loss of the House, the Senate, the Supreme Court, we hope. Face it, we are pretty much all that we have left. Remember, we couldn't do it without you, and you shouldn't do it without us. We're in this together, so thanks.
All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Holding it together with Greg's assistance here. We can definitely make it through an hour. I know that because I don't have to do anything during this hour.
Yeah. Well, I was trying to make the point to David that as far as I know, and I don't know this as a fact, but as far as I know, he's not contractually obligated to be well
That's
until
true.
11 o'clock.
Yes, right. I think he made a big pitch for self-care, very important. The voice doesn't hurt, and it's not fading. It's just
Sounds like it.
yeah. It's does it? Okay. Well, thankfully, it does not actually hurt. It's just a matter of it's a little messier than usual.
Hey, don't forget, you can move super close to the microphone, and it sounds even better.
All right, that's true. Although it also sounds probably a little bit more sniffly if I do. But all right.
Well, just try not to sneeze.
Yes.
So let's look at some other numbers. Harry Enton said Trump was a minus 10. I haven't checked it out. I didn't have time, but I'm guessing he's probably using his own CNN poll because he's on CNN.
Yeah, I would think he might be contractually obligated to do that.
Yeah, but this is Owen Winter, the data journalist who took over for G. Elliott Morris over at The Economist. When G. Elliott Morris moved over to do his own polling stuff and took over at 538, and now he's got strength in numbers, this, that, and everything else. So this is an aggregate. Donald Trump's approval rating in our tracker has fallen to -18, the lowest it has ever been, lower than any point in his first term, certainly lower than any point in his second term. And among 2024 voters, his approval is net negative in every state that voted for Harris, plus 7 swing states: Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, North Carolina, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, as well as Texas.
He's so proud of those swing states, but I bet he didn't have any idea about Texas going underwater.
Right. And these are YouGov Economist polls only, so their poll is different than the CNN poll. In the Economist poll, the president's net approval rating, as I mentioned, -18, down 1.3 points since last week. 39% approved, 57% disapproved, 5% not sure. But wait, there's more. It slices, it dices, it also slices through cans. New Trump approval poll, independent voters from the YouGov poll. Independent voters, the ones who decide elections. And
So
this I was pleased to see. Disapprove 64%, approve 21%. If you don't want to do the math, that's -43.
Wow.
But approve 21% among indies. That's where it needs to be. That's about right.
Yeah. I mean, why not? It makes sense.
I don't really care what MAGA people think. You're not going to dissuade them or change their minds. You can't. That's not the point. And speaking of independent voters, different poll. This is from Quinnipiac.
Okay.
You may recall the other day we said that Gallup had said that all of a sudden the party identification had popped up to D+7.
Oh, no.
Which was a huge swing from where it was. But this is Quinnipiac, not Gallup. New generic ballot poll, independent voters. Independents. Democrats 52, Republicans 32. And if you don't want to do the math, that would be 14. No, it's 20, actually.
That's a good easy one, yeah.
Yeah. 52-32. So Republicans are getting hammered at a time that they're trying to win the public over on these government shutdowns by getting rid of SNAP assistance for red states that depend on it, which is why the Republicans in a House which is quasi-open but not really, or quasi-closed but not really, why Triple M is introducing a bill to pay for SNAP stuff, and Hawley is doing the same in the Senate. They know they're getting clobbered. And that's not even talking about healthcare, which is the main point that Democrats want to run on, but they're running on everything. The whole point of what the Democrats are doing, and all the analysts and journalists, political reporters, pundits who were saying, tut, Democrats never win this sort of thing, yada, yada, yada. I don't even know why they picked this. Well, because it's incredibly popular and people are starting to sign up and finding out how much the premiums are going up. But there's also a subtext in all of this, reinforced by the No Kings in America protests, that Democrats are standing against Trump overreaching.
Yeah.
And, as a strategy, it's a winner.
It is.
Tactics may allow Republicans to hold on a little bit, like the tactic of not allowing Grijalva to be sworn in. That's a strategy, a stupid, failing one. The tactic of, delaying it a little bit will work until it doesn't, but it just makes Mike Johnson look like a weak and effective, worm.
I mean, lots of writing. One of the things we cited yesterday, one of many articles hitting on this point. He's rolling over for Trump, and it's a huge departure from the way things are supposed to work. He's reached the pinnacle of congressional power, and he surrenders it all to someone else. It's just very odd.
It is very odd. James Singer writes that the GOP advantage on economic prosperity completely evaporated. This is Gallup.
Okay.
2023 GOP had a 14-point advantage on the party better to keep the country prosperous. In 2024, the year of the election, GOP had a +6, which is how Trump won. 2025 Democrats +4.
Oh. That's one of those legacy issues that the Republicans thought they owned forever.
Right. The one legacy issue they do own still, interestingly enough, is crime. Reality
committing
has
it?
nothing to do with it. Okay. The fact that crime is down in most areas, it's still something they run on, and people just automatically assume GOP's better on crime.
Well, they are better at doing them.
Right. And we had this argument years ago. Defund the police was a really bad slogan, and this is the
Someone needs to
implication.
arrest these guys. You can't defund everybody.
The immigration problem is a crime problem, writes Laksha Jain, from Split Ticket, one of the election polling analysts. The real driver of anti-immigration politics. Immigration is a crime problem.
They like to think so, sure.
Contrary to what many may think, Americans are not anti-immigration inherently. In many cases, voters have clear and positive impressions of the contributions immigrants have made both to the country to the local communities. But support for immigration has still seen a marked dip since Trump's first term. Why? One big reason. A non-trivial chunk of American voters are linking immigration to crime. When it comes to immigration's impact on the economy, plus 11, culture, plus 22. They didn't ask about food. That would be a plus 80.
Yeah.
But overall, in their local communities, plus 14. However, public safety, minus 16.
Even though that's wrong.
Even though it's wrong, that's what people think.
Yes.
So just 21% of Americans think immigration has had a positive impact when it comes to public safety. 37% think it has a negative impact. And that makes it the only tested dimension on which the public has a net negative view of immigration's local impact. That's why the GOP always goes for these. Oh, there was a truck driver who was illegal and he killed people, and that means that everybody, including Abrego Garcia, has to falsely be sent to torture chambers.
Yes, because they're trying to kill you. That's why they came here. Yeah.
So, just
really true also.
it's not right, it's not fair, but if you want to counter it, you need to be aware.
I do want to counter it.
So, like Laksha Jain says, I think the explanation is simpler. Voters truly are open to letting more immigrants into America, but they think the system has done a bad job of figuring out who those people should be, and that there are too many people coming here illegally. I mean, I can attest to that. Remember last week, my conversation with the MAGA voter who was doing some work around the house.
Right.
And we had a lovely conversation, but absolutely that's what he thinks. He thinks Biden did a terrible job, at least in the last 2 years of his term, of figuring out who should be here and who shouldn't. And Trump did a much better job of just closing things down. And to a certain extent, you can make a case that that's true.
I mean, you can. Don't do it here, but you can.
He shut it down.
Yeah.
He
did do
does
that.
that solve all the problem? No. Now, just 17% of voters want immigration levels to be raised, 38% who want them curbed, and 45% want things to stay as they currently are under Donald Trump, amplified by status quo bias, but not a finding that would indicate a huge demand from voters for the president to change track. So when you run on this as a politician, you have to be clear the problem is ICE, indiscriminate breaking up of families. You have to agree with the public. This is not something that you could simply run against and say the public is wrong, the public be damned. You have to agree with the public that things need to be done better than the way we've done it in the past. You may take issue with how it's being done right now because of how it's affecting families and so on and so forth, but you have to be aware. And you have to be aware of people's mistaken assumptions about crime. I mean, most crimes are going to be committed by native-born, not immigrants.
Yeah, right.
Immigrants have a lower percentage of, but they're the ones that get in the news. They're the big, stories that Republicans will plant and news media will run on because news media are owned by Republicans. Just understand that.
Yeah, we'll work our best to get around it, reverse it, show it up, but it is true.
Right. You'd think if news organizations were totally objective, they would take that story and say either we don't run it or we run it or we have to be fair and add that, usually this is not the
both
case.
Sides.
But, they're owned by Republicans. So they usually say, look, first of all, I'm not going to say that. And secondly, run this and let's make this the lead story.
Right. Or you're fired.
Right.
Okay.
So, again, I just thought I would add that for information purposes.
It's good information.
Yeah. Well, it is information.
Okay.
So All the news that fits we print.
Sure. Today, all information is good information.
Right. So let's talk about elections a little bit.
Wow, that's a good idea.
Did you hear about fake Bill de Blasio?
Yes, in brief, I did.
The Times of London was duped by a Bill de Blasio impersonator. Zachary Lehman from Newsbreak is covering this, but it's just a quick, simple summary, so I'm using it.
Yeah, all right.
With the former New York City mayor saying he was appalled to see the false quotes published. The Times of London claimed that de Blasio read the fine print on Zoran Mandami's plan and can't support him. It was a fake Bill de Blasio impersonator that the Times of
How
London
do you do it? I don't know.
Interviewed.
Yeah, I guess, it occurs to me, well, how would I do a fake Bill de Blasio? I don't even know what his voice sounds like. Aha! That's how
I never spoke to that reporter, never said those things. The quotes aren't mine. They don't reflect my view. So the Times of London retracted it and apologized.
Yeah, well, they can't do much
However,
else. Yeah.
That doesn't stop there.
However, for this, all right.
The New York Post ran with the story. Then when it was retracted.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I have a picture of the story. Out of left field, it says, Mamdani's top cheerleader now says New York City mayoral frontrunner's math doesn't hold up. The quote was, in my view, the math doesn't hold up under scrutiny and the political hurdles are substantial. De Blasio was quoted in the Times of London saying, false quote, retracted. So New York Post retracted the story, but then went with a story along the lines, as Dave Weigel puts it, the new Frankenstein New York Post story is also very funny. It leads with the fake quote and then says de Blasio's denial, then explains why he might have said that.
You mean, all right.
So that they could get the whole thing out there and keep it there.
Oh, wow. Okay. He might have said, like, oh, this is why.
It sounds like something he could have said. In other words, that's what the story. But he didn't say it. The whole point is that it's false.
Well, this show is premised on things that Donald Trump could have said, and it sounds like he said it.
So, you see, when I say that the news media are owned by Republicans and they do Republican things, and I was talking about immigration and crime, this is what I'm talking about.
That's an extreme example. The New York Post is outrageous,
but it is an example. They love doing
it. Yes. Oh, yeah. And it happens every day, and it happens in, I don't know, for instance, the city where that election is taking place.
Right. It's very important. Since we're talking about that election for the moment, and again, 1 week ago, so you can put a lot of this nonsense behind you.
Well, we hope so. Yes.
We got the early vote. The early vote is running older. Duh. It always does. Young people vote late. Duh. They always do.
They've been here longer.
But this is a process thing, so I thought it was of interest. I sent you a picture. This is provided by my buddy Tegan Goddard over at Political Wire.
I see it.
He writes little pieces, short pieces, so they're easy to summarize. Voting early in New York over the weekend was a reminder of just how much ballot design favors the two major parties. Remember our whole discussion in New Jersey and how Andrew Kim made the county line ballots passe because they were super favoring one candidate over the other. We went into that in depth, and that's just one example. New York does it too. Andrew Cuomo may learn that lesson the hard way. Despite decent polling for his independent bid, Cuomo's name is tucked away on the ballot, far below the easily spotted lines for Zoran Mamdani, Democrat, and Curtis Lee, a Republican. For casual or hurried voters, that kind of placement matters. Political scientists have long noted what they call a ballot order effect. They often default to familiar party lines, and candidates listed higher tend to perform better simply because they're easier to find. That's why Cuomo's results could come in below expectations, and why Sliwa, whose name sits in prime position, which is to say second, could surprise with a stronger than expected second place finish. And I'm going to read to you a little bit on the ballot because I think it's important. Okay. First of all, the top line, reading from left to right, Democratic Party, Zoran Kwame Mamdani.
Yes. Can you read the Chinese?
Zoran K. Mamdani. Republican Curtis A. Sliwa. A stands for, he ain't going to win.
All right.
Conservative Irene Estradas, because there's a conservative party. Working Families Party, Zoran Kwame Mamdani. Protect Animals Party, Curtis Sliwa, because of the cats.
Huh. Wow. I didn't even. Hey, I didn't
And
know there was
then
a party, but okay.
on the top line, A, B, C, D, E, F, position F goes to safe and affordable party. That would be Eric Adams. Oh, but he dropped out, you say. You may
Yes, I do
remember on
say
the
that.
show I told you, too late, he dropped out after the day it was
Yeah.
needed for him to get his name
He
off the
missed the
ballot. So he's going to
deadline.
be on the ballot regardless.
Okay. There it is.
So any votes that go to Eric Adams help Mamdani is my point, because he's the front runner.
All right.
Okay. Then the second line underneath that, starting
Yes.
with J, and J isn't even all to the left. It starts in the fourth position.
Right. Yeah. So there's a couple of blank
So
spots.
in other words, it goes in a U. A, B, C, D, E, F. G is under F. That's Joseph Hernandez, the Quality of Life Party.
Uh-huh.
Then they go to I. There's no H.
Yeah, why not?
Fight and Deliver Party. That's Andrew Cuomo. That's the first time he appears on the ballot. And then J, the Integrity Party, that would be Jim Walden, another also ran who dropped out, another Palooka who got out early, but not in time to get his name off the ballot.
It's Lollapalooza over here.
Walden was running at 1%. So, you know, what I'm saying is, you look at this ballot, you got to search to find Andrew Cuomo. Is that going to make a difference? Not to many voters, but to a few it will. And the fact that Adams is still on there,
yeah,
and that Walden is still on there, and that somebody named Irene Estrada is running as a conservative,
right?
You know, they'll pick up a few votes. So, you know, all of that is going to actually hurt Cuomo. We'll see how much. It's hard to tell, but you know, it does matter. That's why Jersey was doing it for all those years.
Yes, and I'm looking at this
because it's a picture.
Yeah.
Because I sent you a picture, you can see things that your listening audience cannot see.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that you can see is a lot of writing under each candidate's name, not necessarily in English.
Right. Definitely not. Well, most of it not in English. Yes.
So I was curious about that and looked it up.
Yeah.
And according to the Google, the official ballot languages in the New York City Board of Elections, which provides official ballots and absentee ballot applications, are in the following languages: English, Spanish, Chinese, Korean.
Oh, I don't see that.
The Korean barbecue in New York. Well, you do see it. You just don't recognize it because it looks just like Chinese.
Oh.
And Bengali.
That I also think I don't see.
That
well,
I don't
think.
Let me
zoom in.
But it turns out that's because the Voting Rights Act, which still exists until the Supreme Court gets to it, says that there are enough people speaking these languages in the New York City voting area that you have to do this.
Are they on every? I guess not every ballot. I guess by
precinct. They're not on every ballot. It would be too big, but they provide official ballots in those languages if you request them.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, it looks to me like it's.
But if you're sent an absentee ballot, you probably get sent all of them.
Yeah, that may be.
And if you don't, the one that you do get sent, and this is an early vote ballot picture, it's on the ballot. At least the Chinese and Korean are on the ballot.
Yeah, I guess so.
And probably the Bengali. If I look at Mandami's name, that very bottom one looks more Arabic than it does Asian.
Yeah, I guess. Well, it's very interesting to see, and it's interesting the way this is laid out, and the fact that there are blank spots on the second line before the last three also rans, like Cuomo.
Yeah,
that makes it look like it's not even like maybe it's for another office, even.
You know, exactly.
It's very odd, and
it's if you find his name, you vote for him. I mean, that's easy enough. It's not a butterfly ballot where you're going to put your little ticker. You fill in the box in the wrong place. But you got to search. You got to work a little bit.
Yeah. I also know.
And in a race where every vote matters, and there is no ranked choice voting in the final. Remember, it's only in the primary. Just
true.
To remind people of that. You know, it's just interesting.
Also interesting. Somehow they laid out. I can't quite tell what's going on here. I'm zooming in, but one of the lesser known candidates, the one who's actually to the right of Cuomo's name,
Joseph Hernandez.
Yeah, but if you look closely. And I've zoomed in as much as I can. It looks like Joseph Hernandez, like the R and the N are so close together.
The R and the, well, that on pictures on the internet that happens.
Yeah,
I think in
but
the actual ballot it's a little bit clearer.
I hope for his sake, just because he's going to want to save one of these as a souvenir. But I mean, that's really, 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 really super close, and there's no reason to do it. They haven't run out of room in that box. They have Zoran Kwame on one line. They can't get Hernandez in there, and I'm looking at Mamdani's M, and it looks exactly like. I think somebody might have goofed on that one. So
right. Hernandez is by the way, he's a biotech guy, first time candidate. He's a political outsider, says Wikipedia, focused on using technology and private sector management strategies to reform city government. I don't think he and Mamdani have the same strategy.
No, very unlikely. But anyway.
But guess what his major campaign theme is?
Spell my name right.
No.
All right.
Affordability.
On that one. Oh, yeah. Quality of life party.
A big deal in New York City. It's what's powering Mamdani's election.
Yeah.
And again, something that Democrats really need to learn from, and that's where you have your national significance.
Yeah.
You're even forcing the biotech big money guys into saying, yeah, it's about affordability.
Yeah, I mean, it's
he doesn't say that with Mamdani not running.
Right. I guess. Probably not. But who knows what Hernandez says? I think if you think you're voting for Joseph Hernandez, you should use the write-in column.
Well, you're saying if he wins, it should be challenged?
Yes. I am.
Because he wasn't confirmed by the Senate?
That's
or whatever,
right. And right.
Rule?
I'll place a bet on it on the new online betting site that the Trump family is opening. Did you happen to see that one?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Spend a minute on
crypto,
that one.
Except with betting, because they haven't made enough money.
Right. So
let's talk Virginia a little bit.
All right. Hello, Virginia. How are you?
This is Blue Virginia. Another look at Virginia House Democrats' big fundraising edge over House Republicans. Amazing to think that heading into the 2017 Virginia House of Delegates elections 8 years ago, Democrats only had 34 of 100 seats. Now they could hit 60 or even higher.
Nice.
Betting market says maybe 68, 67.
Trump takes 10% of that just because it's his betting market.
Only the Republicans.
Yeah. Very, very nice, very aggressive Virginia Democrats. When they won the narrowest of majorities, were much more impressive in pressing forward with Democratic priorities than usual. You think them. Normally they say, well, it's such close margins, we really need to tack back to the center. Not so much for them.
See the House in the national terms. Now, that's not what happens.
Right.
Actually, the closer the margin, the more likely you are to do radical policy, because nobody wants to be the one guy that stopped it.
Yeah. So, I mean, Minnesota, I think, had the same experience as well.
Right. Anyway, I'm showing you the money raised, and it's pretty phenomenal this year
look at that,
compared to previous years.
Good.
Way more than 2021, the difference between Democrats and Republicans. Republicans stay the same. Democrats just go up and up and up and up.
Good. I am glad. Also, by the way, in the news, Virginia Democrats apparently circulating a couple of plans for, and they're really scrambling to make it happen, redistricting to join in on the parade of trying to offset what Republicans are doing with mid-decade redistricting and putting out some super aggressive maps, not saying they're going to do it, but threatening it, and it's making people nervous. They're looking at, somebody's circulating a 10-1D congressional map for Virginia. They're just concentrating all the Republicans in the Southwest.
Right.
And wow. Okay.
Now here's another piece. This is different, looking at the statewide races. Eli McCown Dawson from Nate Silver's shop, Silver Bulletin. If Republicans were hoping Jay Jones's text would drag Abigail Spanberger down, they'd be disappointed.
Yes, well,
even Jones has a reasonable chance of scraping by, according to their and again. By the nature of what Nate Silver and what 538 used to do and what G. Elliott Morris does with a different algorithm, is they don't just report the polls, they don't just average the polls, they don't just do what Real Clear Politics does. You don't hear about them anymore. What they do is they weight them based on how good they think the poll is, how accurate, So a really bad poll may say Trump's up by 10, but their track record is so bad, it may turn out that in their average, they don't give it much weight, and so the average is still Trump down by 3, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So for governor, October 1st aggregates versus now, and in that month of October is when the tax issue came out, I guess, early in the month.
Yeah.
So Spanberger, difference between then and now, she's gone up 1.3 points in the DDHQ poll. Just they're giving you different polls. 50 plus 1, that's G. Elliott Morris' site. She's gone up 0.2. In race to the White House, Logan, somebody, I forget his name. Race to the White House site, D plus 0.6. And in Vote Hub, Republicans have gained 0.3. You can make an argument there that it really has had no effect whatsoever on hers.
Okay.
Lieutenant Governor, same. She was plus 4.5 in decision desk polling. Now she's up 4.0. A difference of Republican plus 0.5, which is minuscule and doesn't really matter.
Okay.
I mean, you need an 8-point change or 6-point change to really say, oh my God, this had a big difference. So when you look at the Attorney General, Vote Hub has Mayari's gaining almost 5 points, and Decision Desk has him gaining 7 points.
Okay. No, I mean, not okay.
But gaining, that's not leading. Gaining. Yeah. It's the difference between
that's
where he
true.
was. So Mayari's may have picked up, let's say, 5 or 6 points. That may or may not be enough for him to win. And the reason is, if Spanberger is going to win by double digits, she may drag Jay Jones over the line. You would have to hope for ticket splitting amongst Democrats if Spanberger is really winning by a lot. And that could happen. It's certainly entirely possible Mayari's could win and Jay Jones could lose.
Could
Easy
happen.
possible.
Yeah.
It's a 50-50 race. But what I'm saying is it hasn't affected Spanberger or Ashmi, the Lieutenant Governor, Democratic.
Good news.
Yeah. So just thought I'd mention that.
All right. Also something you
and
mentioned
then
before.
Last piece I'll get in before the break.
Go ahead.
Graham Plattner's campaign manager is out. That's his second campaign manager. His friend took over when his first one left, and the second one looked around and said, I'm out of here too.
All right. Thanks, Greg. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. We're going to give it a try and see if we can last the hour. I could save this for tomorrow if we can manage a show tomorrow so that I could laud Greg on the air. But I did so in private during the break instead. So let me spill the beans. Something he's been setting up for a very long time is now paying off. As he was mentioning, the critical Attorney General race in Virginia, and he's been pointing out over and over again one of the big reasons, and maybe some sort of closing argument you might make with process-oriented voters. I don't know if they're really still eligible. Most of the process-oriented voters have voted early, but you can make them feel better about their decision to go with Jay Jones instead, because Jason Miyares has done the thing that Greg said he was going to do and what would make the difference all along. The headline on this press release from some unknown weirdo named Carolyn Fiddler, whom you may or may not remember, now in her capacity as the Democratic Attorneys General Association's Director of Communications. The statement is, statement speaks for itself, but here's the headline on the thing. Miyares sides with Trump. That's not a surprise, of course. Notably missing, again, as AGs file lawsuit to protect SNAP funds amid shutdown. So a lot of threads coming together in this one. The loss of SNAP benefits across the country, and in particularly in red areas, has got even Republicans nervous. But so SNAP funds running out on November 1st, changes in Obamacare, ACA premiums skyrocketing, that's got them concerned. These are issues where even Republican members of Congress are peeling off on these things. And as Greg mentioned, the difference between having a Democratic Attorney General and a Republican Attorney General in this job is that when several states, in some cases dozens of states, are banding together to stand up to Trump and his weirdo nonsense and his hurting people and doing it on purpose. A Republican attorney general will be absent from that and will purposefully avoid trying to help people in their state actually get what they're entitled to from the government. Jason Miyares is doing that right now, just as he's trying to make a run at getting back the lead by capitalizing on, more or less a trumped up garbage piece of attack ad. So, is there some validity to it? Do you want to not commit these words to print? Yes. Do you want to be in the position of having to make excuses for it? No. Can you afford to have an attorney general who, as a result of that, is not present when it comes time to defend SNAP benefits in your state? No. And that's the point. Miyares has failed to join another lawsuit that would protect 850,000 Virginians from going hungry during the federal government shutdown. The factual layout here that comes above Carolyn's quote is, today, Miyares failed to protect Virginians again after refusing to sign on to a lawsuit filed by all 23 Democratic attorneys general and 3 Democratic governors challenging the Trump administration for its refusal not just to magically continue SNAP, but rather its refusal to tap into existing emergency funds to keep food aid flowing into the states during the Gops government shutdown. When you think about the few things that they have continued to fund, beating people up on the street because they're brown, even if they're a United States citizen, apparently restoring a Confederate statue inside of D.C. that had been damaged during a Black Lives Matter protest event at some point. Did they really need to do that ever? No. And of course, funding various other garbage that we don't really need to be doing, like trotting around picking up golden birthday presents for Donald Trump. All of these things. But here, they don't even have to do any weird manipulating of funds. There are emergency funds there, appropriated, available. He just has to basically say, yes, use those funds. He's not got any other use for them. He's not reprogramming them elsewhere. He may try to do that later, but in the meantime, he just won't do it. He's engendered a lawsuit. 23 states are involved. Could be 24, but we have a jackass Republican as Attorney General. So 850,000 Virginians, well, you're out of luck. See whether they care. Now, the statement from Carolyn is included here in case you want to quote her, but we're going to be like the Times of London and the New York Post and have a fake Carolyn Fiddler quote. This is actually the real words, but I could change them and fake a voice up for her too. You'd never know the difference. But here's the real quote. It is incredibly disturbing that MAGA Miyares would rather see families suffer than put his politics aside and join attorneys general in restoring aid that would help feed hundreds of thousands of people across the Commonwealth. And by the way, I'll add in here, she may even have thrown something in here, but it's important to remember in all of this SNAP issue that a very significant portion of our active duty troops in the various branches of the armed forces are dependent on SNAP benefits. They don't pay a huge amount of money in the armed forces, in the enlisted ranks in particular. And yeah, if you're maintaining a household on that, well, you can get your meals while you're on duty and on base. But if you've got a family, well, they have to eat elsewhere. Now, while there are subsidized and very low-cost commissaries available to them, that's something the post exchanges that that this administration is looking to shut down as well, or privatize and raise the prices, and God knows what else. But yeah, you could be serving your country in the military and forced to stand behind Donald Trump as to look like you're filling in spots in the crowd when he gives a speech. But he's not taking care of your food needs or your family's food needs, and neither is Jason Miyares. He just doesn't seem to care about that. Anyway, back to what Carolyn was saying. As the government shutdown drags on, Miyares continues to demonstrate that he'd rather do Trump's bidding than protect Virginia's families. Virginians need Jay Jones as their next attorney general. He will fight for them and stop at nothing to ensure families can put food on the table because Virginians can trust Jones to put them first. Okay. Well, it's a little, campaigny, but as it happens, that's what's going on right now. We are in the middle of that campaign. Okay. Do I have a way to cite this thing? I got it in email, so I'm thinking about linking it up for the summary, but you'll just have to trust me that I didn't just make it up or call the Times of London and say that Carolyn said this. She really did. All right. Back to the various stories parked in Instapaper. There are many. I guess we're going to do the little bit of stream of consciousness stuff. This, I don't know that it would have made our top 10 choices of stories, but because I was just mentioning the fact that there are active duty military families in trouble who are going to lose SNAP benefits, let me connect something for veterans that ProPublica has. This is a very interesting story all by itself and harkens back to earlier days in this administration, back when Dodgy was running around ruining everything for everybody. In particular, that Dodgy and the AI fans inside of Dodgy were using that AI in ways that made things infinitely worse and doing things like basically just doing term searches, which you didn't even need AI for, but using AI regardless to do term searches for things that show me everything that says the word diversity and then eliminate it, even if it has nothing to do with what you think is, the woke agenda. If you're talking about biodiversity, well, that's environmentalism, and we hate that crap too. At least there was that. But here's one of the things. This is a great idea to bring up stories like this. Like, oh yeah, that could run into problems too. Basically, I think what happened here, long story short, is that in the Dodgy days and afterwards, when they were looking a little bit deeper and trying to show me more like gender issue stuff and woke transgender things, and let's use different words so that we encapsulate everybody. Like, they used to bother them tremendously, and still does, that if you say pregnant people as opposed to pregnant women, well, all right. So you know the issues surrounding all of that. Here, I think, is an outgrowth of this. ProPublica, in their healthcare section, has this story. Citing Trump order on, quote, biological truth, right? So this is where all this comes from. The VA makes it harder for male veterans with breast cancer to get coverage. And I mean, there are probably those among the ranks of the MAGA types who will say, yeah, exactly. What men with breast cancers, that's like pregnant people. Oh, yeah, some men can be pregnant. Well, they disagree. Okay, I see what you're getting at. I mean, is it the language that's confusing you? Well, in this case, it's not, of course, because, that's the part of the body where the cancer is. What can I tell you? And I'm sure that they would say, well, for that, we want to say huge muscle, huge pec cancer. No, it's still the breast. And, if that embarrasses you, you need therapy, not to rewrite the anatomy books. So yes, men get breast cancer. Not in the numbers women do, but they do get it. And not because they're really women who say they're men. They are men who say they're men, and that's what the area of the body is called, and that's where the cancer is. But yet, dodgy AI wackiness has got it so that veterans who have cancer aren't able to get the treatment because I hate woke. That's all there is to it. A Department of Veterans Affairs memo obtained by ProPublica erects new roadblocks to care for veterans with the rare but deadly cancer, breast cancer, but in men. The agency cites no new science, but relies on an executive order about, quote, restoring biological truth, quote unquote, in government. Eric Umansky with this very important and otherwise overlooked issue. Let me just read you a little bit about it. We don't have to go too in depth, but it's just a great example of the ways that Republican black and whiteism will lead you to huge problems that you ordinarily would regret if you cared about things or people. The Trump administration is making it more difficult for veterans with a rare but deadly cancer to get their health care needs covered by the government. Isn't that odd? Veterans, we love them, right? The new policy involving breast cancer in men is laid out in a Department of Veterans Affairs memo obtained by ProPublica. The previously undisclosed document does not cite any involving science. Rather, it relies on an order that President Donald Trump issued on his first day in office, titled, what's he doing? Defending Women from Gender Ideology Extremism. What are these words exactly? Man, woman, person, camera. Defending women from gender ideology extremisms and restoring biological truth to the federal government. That's probably how we would read it. An agency spokesperson confirmed the change. As of September 30th, the department no longer presumes service connection for male breast cancer. Press Secretary Pete Kasperowicz said in a, I don't know if that's how he pronounces it, but that's what he's getting. Pete Kasperowicz wrote in a statement to ProPublica. He noted that veterans who've previously qualified for coverage can keep it, but the roughly 100 male veterans who were newly diagnosed each year, the path will now be significantly harder. They will have to show their cancer was connected to military service, a burden that has often been hard to meet. Without VA coverage, experts say veterans' care could be delayed or even missed altogether, even as research has shown that the rate of breast cancer among men has been increasing, and the disease is deadlier than it is for women, I guess by percentage. One study also found that breast cancer for men is notably higher among veterans, so you might even be able somehow to make that connection to service. Cancer in male veterans should be covered, said Dr. Anita Agarwal. I hope that's correct. A VA oncologist who researched and treated breast cancer for years before retiring recently. These people have put their lives at risk for us. You know, that's the argument. As Agarwal noted, breast tissue in men and women are similar. Male breasts don't produce milk, Agarwal said, in case you were looking for a difference. There's a difference between the sexes. Well, then, there it is. But the treatment is the same. She added that research had linked breast cancer to toxic exposure, and I guess there's a bit of that in the military from time to time. The administration's new policy rolls back benefits that were created under the promise to address comprehensive toxics, or PACT Act, a Biden-era law, oh, boo, say the MAGA Republicans, that ushered in one of the largest expansions of healthcare and benefits in VA history. And that'll make them mad. After a long fight by advocates, congressional Democrats and Republicans passed the measure 3 years ago, making it easier for veterans poisoned by, Agent Orange and other toxic substances, to get benefits. Before the law, the VA had frequently been denying the claims. Now, the government would presume many ailments were connected to veterans' military service, so long as they served in particular areas and had any number of diseases on a VA list. As a result, more than 200,000 veterans likely exposed to toxic substances during their service have qualified to have their care covered. Trump administration's change means that male veterans who get breast cancer will no longer be able to benefit from that easier path for coverage. Veterans who have it say the move has left them aghast and puzzled. Jack Gelman, an 80-year-old former Navy fighter pilot who served in Vietnam, can't find room to serve this guy, already facing the fact that his long-dormant breast cancer came back last year. Now he has to grapple with the fact that the government has just made it harder for him to get covered. I'm astonished. He said repeatedly when ProPublica told him about the change, this is really nickel and diming a very small group of people who should be taken care of. Other veterans echoed that. I don't care if it's toenail cancer, said Kirby Lewis, who was diagnosed with breast cancer about a dozen years ago, now is in stage 4. If exposure occurs, they should take care of these people. I have to agree. Trump, on the other hand, can run around collecting golden crowns and ignoring the problem. All right, I'm going to stop at this point on this article. Very interesting. definitely recommended that you take a look at it, make yourself aware of this problem. And although maybe I should look back and see if there is any kind of attempt at explaining why they would remove this particular ailment from the list, but I don't know that they actually go that far. But it is interesting that they do so and cite this weird executive order, which really should have nothing whatsoever to do with this. It's not protecting any women, certainly. It's not like the cancer treatment can't go to, there are women who are having to live with breast cancer because you're giving it to men, which ordinarily this administration would probably be in favor of, honestly. But, you know, there's no rhyme or reason to what they're doing in any area at all. All right. There are a couple other items that present themselves as real possibilities. Let me try this one. I guess maybe we'll do stream of consciousness here. This is only vaguely medically connected, I guess, but medical, so we'll stick with that thing. Over at Salon, it's been a while since we heard from Amanda Marcotte, or since we have allowed ourselves to talk about what she's writing on the air. I don't know. She's writing all the time, but whatever. Trump craziness covered very well by some others as well. She's got a good take on an article that I put aside in a more serious fashion, and I decided to go with her version of it instead. Texas sues Tylenol for the dumbest reason. I love the headline. Attorney General Ken Paxton, you remember him, big clowns himself again to get Trump to endorse his Senate run. Amanda says that is a pretty dumb reason for what's going on here. In an unbelievably crowded field, the title of, quote, most wretched Republican bootlicker is ultimately impossible to determine. But on Tuesday morning, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton made a strong case for himself when he filed a nuisance lawsuit against Johnson & Johnson and Kenvue, falsely accusing the companies of concealing a link, which he hasn't found. That's why it's concealed. I haven't found it because you're concealing it, that is. Concealing a link between Tylenol and autism. That's the made-up crap that RFK has been hawking lately. The word baseless doesn't even begin to describe the value of the lawsuit. Both the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists and the American Academy of Pediatrics have affirmed there is no significant link between using this common painkiller during pregnancy and having an autistic child. On the contrary, there could be significant risks if women were to forego a doctor's advice to use the drug for pain or fever. MAGA Republicans, especially Paxton, have a long history of loathing both science and women, so they have no conscientious objections to a lawsuit that hurts women in the name of lying about medicine. Still, at first glance, Paxton's move is surprising as a political strategy. In September, when President Donald Trump and Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. initially blamed autism on pregnant women who take Tylenol, the backlash was widespread and fierce. Nearly 60% of Americans said they disapproved of Kennedy's management of HHS. The underlying misogyny of Trump and Kennedy's position was also hard to miss. Even many politically disengaged people were angry at Trump falsely blaming autism on mothers who, in his eyes, failed to tough it out. It was just another reminder of the callous disregard Trump and Republicans have for women's basic rights to safety, even by MAGA standards. Paxton has high levels of radiant misogyny, but it's confusing why he would want to touch this hot stove. The likeliest answer is also the most painfully stupid one. Paxton is beclowning himself in the hopes of wooing Trump to endorse his primary challenge against incumbent Gops Senator John Cornyn. That is a bit of a long shot, but it might just work, I guess. All right, she doesn't say that. I did. The polls indicate that the race is a dead heat. Earlier this year, Paxton held a strong lead over Cornyn, who has lost popularity with the Gops far-right flank over his occasional willingness to criticize Trump, as well as his support of laws to keep mentally unwell people from owning guns. But the Attorney General's polls have steadily slipped for months due to revelations about his affairs, and we mean, the lewd and lascivious kind, ongoing corruption scandals, and general odiousness. Many in the party have worried that if Paxton secures the nomination, he will lose to a Democrat. Wouldn't that be something? In response, Paxton has become comically thirsty for Trump's endorsement, signaling there's no limit to how low he will debase himself to get that tiny thumbs up. As CNN reported in August, Paxton has taken to booking trips to Trump-owned golf courses when the president is rumored to be there, hoping to cross paths on the links with the great Orange Hope. I think that's how Lindsay Halligan got her job, so maybe right? His campaign has also been running ads for the Texas race in Palm Beach, Florida, for some reason, hoping Trump will catch one during his obsessive cable news watching. The president, for his part, appears to enjoy toying with Paxton, telling reporters in August they all want the endorsement. But gosh, he just doesn't know when I'll make up my mind. By filing this frivolous lawsuit, Paxton is flattering Trump's notoriously fragile ego. In the weeks since Trump and Kennedy first uttered the Tylenol lie with great fanfare during a strange press conference. Do I have a strange fanfare for that? The president has been bitter about the pushback he has received from women and doctors. Damn it, I hate that. During a recent cabinet meeting, which was merely an occasion for high-ranking government officials to publicly kiss Trump's feet, it really does say feet, Kennedy made a point to grouse about how terrible women were for questioning the lies. He insisted, I'm sorry, I think I may have skipped from one line to another. Kennedy made a point to grouse about how terrible women were for questioning the president's immeasurable medical wisdom. There it is. Pregnant women who disbelieve Trump's lies, he insisted, suffer from a, quote, pathology he called Trump derangement syndrome. We've heard that before, of course. No such syndrome exists, but the social pathology of sexist men calling outspoken women crazy has long been well documented. Trump, who periodically takes to Truth Social to yell at women with all caps diatribes for taking Tylenol, did it again on Sunday. Don't use Tylenol unless absolutely necessary, which it usually is. Don't give Tylenol to your young child for virtually any reason, he instructed women. He also admonished them to reject medical advice on vaccination schedules, recommending a Trump-preferred schedule instead that just so happens to involve a lot more time spent going to and from the doctor's office, but what's given up even more of your limited time as a working mother, what's giving up even more of your time, that is, if it's done to prove your unquestioning belief that Trump knows better than actual experts. Sure, why not? Okay. The once innocuous pain medication has become a symbol for misogynists of how women are evil, disobedient harlots. It's also a personal fixation for a narcissist like Trump, who has clearly not recovered from being told, by women no less, that he is not the smartest man who ever lived. Unsurprisingly, this is happening at the same time Trump is publicly freaking out over his deep and justified fear that Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is smarter than he is. All this makes the timing of Paxton's lawsuit interesting. The legal filing has slap together quality to it, including a plethora of irrelevant Wikipedia-style details like why the drug is called Tylenol, to fill out, of course, the page length and make the complaint seem more substantive than it is. This feels like it's going to be dismissed. Make it larger. All right. It reads very much like something Paxton hastily assembled, perhaps even after seeing Trump's Sunday Truth Social post, in hopes of getting the president's attention, not out of any confidence that he'll actually win in court. The whole thing is yet another reminder that Paxton is corrupt on a level that even alienates some Texas Republicans. Even if this case gets thrown out quickly, it will cost Texas taxpayers substantial amounts of money in litigation, none of which will go to making lives better for Texans, or life itself, in fact. To the contrary, it will just make things worse by sowing more doubt and mistrust of legitimate medicine, causing pregnant women to take unnecessary health risks. This lawsuit is nothing more than an expensive public show of flattery towards Trump, paid for by a state that underfunds the education, transportation, and health needs of everyday Texans. If somehow Paxton does make it to the Senate, yikes, we can expect more of the same, treating the public's trust as a piggy bank financing his personal ambitions. No wonder he thinks that he should win Trump's endorsement. Nicely done. Well done, and welcome back to the program. And Amanda, I appreciate having this to read. I know you're always providing more, but this was a real pleasure to read rather than the sort of dry reporting that they were, in fact, filing this super stupid lawsuit. There's lots more, of course. In fact, a couple of long reads that I'd like to get to in the next. Well, who knows how my health will hold up. But so far, the voice is holding up. Yes. Let's see. Right. Actually, I had a Kyle Cheney Blue Sky post that was of some interest, but I'm reminded that actually Greg covered it in passing. It was the word that the Ninth Circuit would reopen the path to blocking the deployment of troops up in Portland. Right. Okay. So that at least is on the record. We'll be right back. Hi, everybody. It's me, David Waldman. Yes, the same guy who interrupts you all the time. Interrupting you one more time just to tell you again, another reminder that your contributions are what keep this show on the air, and Patreon.com, Patreon.com, is still among the easiest ways to make the sustaining subscription donations that keep us afloat. Are you ready for the pep talk about how our Patreon campaign is still going strong and growing? Well, too bad. Yeah, the plain fact is we actually are headed in the wrong direction, and whereas we once had about 175 monthly patrons, we're now actually down below 150. Time to recruit some more. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. For those of you in a position to support the show, Patreon.com does make it easy to make those secure, recurring monthly contributions to do so. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. We've been through a lot together. The worst of the pandemic, we hope. The worst of the insurrection, we hope. So go ahead and treat yourself. You don't need an excuse. Give yourself the gift of a little something you enjoy in life. Support the show. And of course, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running on those options too. So thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We couldn't, or at least shouldn't, do it without you. Hope you'll be on board soon too. Thanks for all your support. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Shoo! All right, a little brief break to relax things. Can't really try to take a nap during the 2 minutes. It just doesn't work. But okay, we're hanging in there. There's plenty more to read to you, and I think we can manage to get through most of it. But yes, I did open that up somewhere. The Kyle Cheney post from yesterday, which was then breaking news. Just to reiterate the point, the full bench of the Ninth Circuit has agreed to take up the Portland National Guard case and vacated the panel decision that had blessed Trump's deployment. So that was well put. And I don't know. I guess Greg actually had covered it there, but since we were talking more about procedural issues than the basic news, I want to restate that one for you. And also, I had opened it, and there it was, and it's good news. And, I don't want to pass it over at this point. Now, let's see. I guess also on the legal front, I mentioned to you that I guess there's reporting from it's a local source about Greg Bovino's day in court and what he's supposed to be doing. Is WTTW a Chicago area outlet? I can't tell from the front page, but it looks like it, and they got a lot of Chicago area stories on the front page here. So the reporting from yesterday's proceedings: federal judge orders Border Patrol Chief Greg Bovino to wear camera and report to her every day. Heather Cherone of WTTW lays it out this way. Border Patrol Chief Greg Bovino, who has led a series of increasingly aggressive raids across Chicago and the suburbs and fired tear gas at protesters in Little Village, must obtain and wear a body-worn camera and report every weekday at 6 p.m. in person to the federal judge who has tried to rein in federal agents' use of force. The judge is getting a little disturbed here, I think. U.S. District Court Judge Sarah Ellis questioned Bovino for approximately an hour and 15 minutes Tuesday morning in her courtroom at the Dirksen Federal Building in downtown Chicago, reading the temporary restraining order she issued more than 2 weeks ago, line by line. I mean, that's literally just rereading the order to him, like, do you understand? Are we clear? Are we clear? Right, okay, just because he's a military guy in court. After reminding Bovino of the oath he took to support and defend the Constitution, Ellis displayed deep concern about the videos submitted to the court as evidence and others that have blanketed social media in Chicago and nationwide, triggering widespread outrage. It's difficult for me to see that the force being used is necessary to stop an immediate and serious threat of physical harm to a person, Ellis said, basically citing the rules to him, and then saying, I fail to see how that complies with the rules. Bovino, whose brash social media presence and frequent appearances in the media have come to define what the Trump administration calls Operation Midway Blitz, said little during the hearing. He was out of his element, clearly. Federal agents fired tear gas at Chicagoans on Thursday in Little Village, on Friday in Lakeview, and in Old Irving Park on Saturday. Since October 3rd, federal agents have fired tear gas at protesters 7 times. 40 Chicago police officers were exposed to tear gas in 2 of those incidents. Yeah, that was early on, some real mistakes in the way they were deploying this stuff, or quote unquote mistakes, I guess. I don't know. Maybe they don't like Chicago cops any more than they like the populace there. Ellis appeared particularly incensed by what happened on Saturday in Old Irving Park when federal agents deployed tear gas after residents protested their attempts to detain a construction worker. Kids dressed in Halloween costumes walking to a parade do not pose an immediate threat to the safety of a law enforcement officer, Ellis said. They just don't. Let's get that straight. I think that would be nice if they could get Bovino to acknowledge that. He'll just sit grimly by and nod while he's in court. We'll see what happens outside of court. Ellis said the entire Old Irving Park community had been traumatized by the actions of federal agents, particularly children who witnessed the confrontation and experienced the effect of the chemical agent. Their sense of safety was shattered, Ellis said. It is going to take a long time to come back, if ever. Although Bovino personally deployed tear gas on Thursday in Little Village, Ellis did not question him about his conduct during that day. That's too bad. Federal officials said Bovino fired the tear gas after he was struck in the head by objects thrown by the protesters. Bovino had no visible head injury Tuesday. The camera is your friend, Ellis said, adding that a camera would capture someone throwing a rock or fireworks at him, and then it won't be just your word about whether or not you're allowed to actually deploy tear gas. And by the way, I guess in the still frame from the video in which he's deploying the tear gas, he's got no helmet on, which, you should not be hit in the head by anything, whether you have a helmet on or not. But maybe if you're worried about actual threats, put on some of the headgear that the officers surrounding you are wearing. Anyway, Ellis's order also requires federal agents to display their identification, including names and badge numbers. At Ellis's urging, Bovino said he would again order agents to conspicuously display that information in a location of their choosing. It should really be a standard place, I think. More than 2 weeks ago, Ellis prohibited federal agents from deploying tear gas and other weapons against journalists, protesters, and anyone not posing an immediate threat to immigration enforcement agents. If agents determine crowds pose a threat, they must issue 2 warnings before using tear gas and other types of chemical sprays. That, according to Ellis's order, which was issued in relation to a case brought by the Chicago Headline Club, Chicago Newspaper Guild Local 34071, Block Club Chicago, and other media organizations. Ellis said it appeared that her order had not been followed and told Bovino that she could think of only 3 reasons. The order was unclear, in which case let me read it to you. The order was misunderstood, in which case let me read it to you. Or the order was purposely violated, in which case let me send you to jail, I would say. Ellis said she was certain that Bovino would not knowingly breach an order issued by a federal judge, and added that she ordered him into the court to make sure there was no confusion. The people of Chicago have a right to tell Bovino and the agents under his command that they don't like what they are doing and want them to leave, Ellis said. They can't get tear gassed for exercising their rights under the First Amendment, Ellis said. I understand what you are saying, Your Honor, Bovino said under oath. We will abide by the temporary restraining order. Ellis ordered Bovino to report to her chambers every weekday at 6 p.m. to recap the events of the day and inform her of any use of force. And again, I haven't seen any evidence that he was there yesterday at 6 p.m. No evidence that says he wasn't, but you'd think that would be reported. But I could just be missing the reporting. Ellis also ordered lawyers for the government to submit all of the reports documenting when federal agents used force against members of the public, and all body-worn camera footage that captured those interactions by Friday. Any future reports about force used by federal agents must be submitted to the court within 24 hours, Ellis ruled. Ellis also ordered the government to submit detailed information about every person detained or arrested for non-immigration offenses by Friday and within 24 hours of future arrests. Those reports and footage will not be made public, Ellis ruled, so you can't even use that as an excuse. While Bovino agreed to appear as ordered, lawyers for the government objected and asked Ellis to prevent her order from taking effect to allow them a chance to appeal. Temporary restraining orders are not typically able to be appealed. Ellis, you've heard that on the show a couple of times by now, Ellis said she would exercise her authority to enforce her order. A hearing on a permanent order reining in federal agents' conduct is set for November 5th. While the plaintiffs asked Ellis to ban the use of tear gas in order to prevent additional extreme harm, Ellis declined to do so, at least on Tuesday. If they are using tear gas, they better be able to back it up, Ellis said, and if they can't, then they will lose that as something they can use. I think they've already kind of demonstrated that, but all right. Going forward, they'll be doing that. Lawyers for the government told Ellis it would be, frankly, dangerous for her to issue such an order. Ellis said she hoped Bovino now understands what his obligations are as the commander of Midway Blitz and what his agents are allowed and not allowed to do. I expect everyone to act in good faith, Ellis said, saying she does not want to doesn't want to run this operation or probably ruin it, but okay, I do, but I don't know that we're going to see a whole lot of tear gas being deployed over the next week. Okay, you get the idea? Ellis also instructed lawyers for the government to warn agents to be extra cautious on Halloween. Know that it's a day where people will be out and about, Ellis said. And then on to more coverage of what had happened in the past. 3 days of tear gas in Chicago. There's a recap here. And I mean, it's a powerful recap. I also would encourage you to read through it. It'll take us a little while longer well, maybe we ought to add it just because it's local color. We've all seen video clips being circulated on social media, but it's interesting to hear a judge discuss this. Ellis ordered Bovino into her courtroom hours after federal agents deployed tear gas against residents of Lakeview on Friday, less than 24 hours after Bovino and agents deployed tear gas against residents of Little Village. Hours after Ellis's order, federal agents deployed tear gas in Old Irving Park, so you can see why she's getting upset. This past weekend, defendants went on a tour of Chicago neighborhoods, gassing residents in different neighborhoods each day, according to court filings from the plaintiffs. The government is regularly inflicting harm on civilians who are simply protesting or observing defendants' violent and unprecedented paramilitary enforcement efforts in one of the country's largest municipalities. Ellis said she was disturbed that she could hear no warnings from federal agents on any of the videos. A warning has to be, I am going to deploy tear gas if you do not do whatever it is. Get off my car, whatever, and allow people time to comply, Ellis said. While agents did not deploy tear gas on Thursday in Little Village, one federal officer who was not wearing a body camera or any obvious visible identification shot Enrique Bahena in the neck from 5 feet away with a pepper ball, according to the court filing. As the agents drove away from that incident, they pointed a pepper ball gun and then a real gun at Chris Gentry, a combat veteran who was lawfully standing on the side of the road. Bang, bang, and you're dead, liberal, while Gentry stood on the side of the road and protested. I don't know. It doesn't say, for some reason, clearly they meant to say that's what the agents were saying as they were pointing the weapons out the window. I don't know why it doesn't say that here, but that's what they mean. On its face, that violates the TRO, Ellis said, using an abbreviation for temporary restraining order. Bovino said he did not know the specifics of what happened, even though he was present at Little Village on Thursday, but acknowledged the basis for the judge's concerns. While at least some of the agents have appeared to be wearing cameras on their uniforms, no footage has been turned over to lawyers for the plaintiffs. In an interview with CBS News published Friday, CBS, Bovino said he and his agents had complied with Border Patrol policy when using force against Chicagoans. The use of force that I've seen has been exemplary. The least amount of force necessary to accomplish the mission, Bovino said. If someone strays into a pepper ball, then that's on them. Don't protest and don't trespass. Nope, that's not actual law enforcement. That's law breaking. You're doing the wrong thing here, sir. Wanders into a pepper ball, strays into a pepper ball. Come on. The right to protest actions by the government is, as you may remember, protected by the First Amendment. In a separate case challenging President Trump's deployment of 700 National Guard troops to Chicago, U.S. District Court Judge April Perry said she found federal officers' assertions that federal agents had been subjected to serious and coordinated violence by protesters simply unreliable. I mean, unbelievable, really, but certainly unreliable. That's what she said. The face of Operation Midway Blitz is next. First in Los Angeles, then in Chicago, Bovino has become the face of Trump's efforts to use federal law enforcement agencies to fulfill his promise to conduct the largest domestic deportation operation in American history. In July, Bovino led a phalanx of military personnel into MacArthur Park, forcing children to flee the park and enraging city officials. In September, a man charged with assaulting a federal agent was acquitted by a jury after Bovino testified he saw the man drag his arm back and strike an agent with an open palm in the chest. But the jury didn't think so. During the Biden administration, Bovino was reprimanded for referring to undocumented immigrants as scum, filth, and trash. Yeah, you should get reprimanded for that, don't you think? Bovino said under oath he was referring to a specific undocumented immigrant. Even so, be professional. On September 25th, Bovino rode down the Chicago River alongside several agents armed with military-style weapons on a boat. Come on. On September 29th, Bovino and dozens of agents marched through downtown Chicago and told WBEZ-FM the agents were arresting people based on how they look. They told the news people that. Come on. And by the way, that boat ride down the Chicago River, like if you see an immigrant walking down the riverbank, what are you going to jump off the boat and swim at him? What is that supposed to be? Bovino and other Trump administration officials have shared several Hollywood-style promotional videos of masked, heavily armed officers detaining people who appear to be Latino. One video showed agents rappelling onto an apartment building in the South Shore, you know all about that one, where they said gang members lived. Only one person has been charged with a crime after that raid, which triggered widespread outrage. Did you know that? All of that Black Hawk helicopters rappelling, whatnot. One person charged with a crime. A 37-year-old man has been charged with soliciting Bovino's murder. Although federal officials claimed in public statements that the man is a gang member, those allegations have not been repeated in court filings where you can get in trouble for saying them if they're not true. Bovino joined the Border Patrol in 1996. In case you were wondering, in 2020, he was named Chief Patrol Agent of the El Centro sector. In 2023, Bovino was briefly relieved of command after he testified critically about conditions along the border under former President Joe Biden's administration. Bovino was also probed for posting incendiary messages on social media and for an online profile picture of him posing with an assault rifle. He's, not a great guy, to say the least. All right. Well, the local color, I think, was worth it, and a recapping of what's been going on there. Let's see. A couple other things that are up towards the top that got parked here today. Gosh, there are an awful lot, but one of them we have the privilege of reading today, I think, through a gift link. Although, do I already have it open? I'll have to take a look and see by, there we are, by the logo here. From the Philadelphia Inquirer. Always worth reading, and it says so right on the Blue Sky post that featured it. Will Bunch from the Philly Inquirer. An interesting observation on the state of constitutional law in this country. And I guess a good follow-up to the article we started but didn't finish about the weirdness of Mike Johnson rendering the legislative branch, Article 1, ineffective and invisible under the Trump administration. So very odd. So we'll make another attempt at reading an important article, an important summation of things with Will Bunch's piece here. It didn't take a Reichstag fire to burn down Congress. There's actually the Will Bunch newsletter, but hosted at the Philadelphia Inquirer site. If, let's say, if today's newsletter, he starts out, doesn't make any sense, or, less sense than usual, blame baseball. I guess he was up late watching the, 18-inning game that we didn't even mention on yesterday's show. But anyway, that's no excuse. What's happening here? A dictator needs to shut down his legislature. Trump is almost there. Just sort of a little historical survey here. A lot of language that never used to be a part of America's political discourse has come into vogue since January 20th, like Rubicon, that ancient Roman river that's come to symbolize a divide between democracy and dictatorship, and has been crossed more times lately than the Hudson on a busy Monday morning rush hour. Or this one, Reichstag fire. On February 27th, 1933, less than a month after Adolf Hitler was named Germany's chancellor, an alleged arson fire destroyed much of the nation's legislative building in Berlin, the Reichstag. A Dutch communist, I didn't realize that, was blamed for the blaze, which sparked the ruling Nazis to implement the Reichstag fire decree, expelling leftist lawmakers and sending political foes to newly created concentration camps. Are we creating any of those? The now Nazi-dominated Reichstag soon passed the Enabling Act, giving dictatorial powers to Hitler, and so Reichstag fire has come to symbolize a crisis, real or manufactured, used to justify tyrannical rule. I think you all understood that, but maybe if you're new to English. What's interesting is that the Nazi regime never abolished the Reichstag. It continued to meet, rarely, and as a ceremonial rubber stamp, until Hitler died inside his bunker in 1945. That's typical under strongman rule to this day. For example, Russia's Duma continues to meet and pass laws, but only the ones that Vladimir Putin tells them to enact. Is any of this starting to sound familiar? In Washington, the House of Representatives has met for only 12 days over the last 3 months, even as the nation confronts a wave of crises either linked to or overlapping with the shutdown of the federal government that began when Congress couldn't approve a budget bill by the October 1st deadline. Not a budget bill, appropriations. Okay. After passing its own dead-on-arrival spending plan on September 19th, House Speaker Mike Johnson, in a measured tone meant to mask the increasing insanity of what he's saying, keeps finding one excuse after another to shut down the branch once dubbed a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away as the People's House, which I'll just pause on for just a moment because I mentioned that the other day, that I've always heard the term the People's House used with respect to the House of Representatives, and that of late it's been used in connection with the White House, albeit by people who are attempting to criticize Trump for, say, tearing down part of that People's House. And I've heard it said, that it's a Republican, small r, Republican presidential executive mansions. We don't do a palace here in this country. But his, over decorating it and trying to turn it into a palace is problematic in its own right. But yeah, I find it a little bit weird. I know, there's, I guess the message here in calling it the People's House is, you're stealing it away from the people. But it's never really, in my view, been something I think of as the People's House in the same way that the House of Representatives is. If they had that title and it's being purposefully transferred, thank you, to the White House, that's actually part of the same problem that we're supposed to be addressing in this piece, which was why it's important to bring it up. The People's House is Congress. If you start pretending that it's the White House, that's just making things worse. Anyway, Will Bunch is not having that problem. The Louisiana Republican, that is Mike Johnson, has insisted, without any historical precedent, that there is no point in the House conducting business as long as the gridlocked Senate refuses to pass the lower chamber's bill to keep the government open. Many cynics have honed in on an alternative explanation that Johnson is using the shutdown as an excuse not to swear in Democratic Arizona Representative-elect Adelita Grijalva, and he is. She would be the 218th vote to force likely passage of a measure to open up the government's files on the late millionaire sex fiend Jeffrey Epstein, including its likely references to President Donald Trump. All true, but kind of beside the point in all of this. And I also wanted to make the point in passing here that the whole excuse of not bringing the House back in is to try to continue to jam the Senate, right? The House's Johnson's view of things is, well, the House passed a continuing resolution. If the Senate were just simply to agree to it with no changes, we could open up the government again. But they don't seem willing to do that. So ordinarily, you would say the House should come in and propose something different that they think the Senate will accept. But they instead have refused to do that, saying, well, we can't come back in because the government's not open. Well, how's the government supposed to get open if you won't come back and propose something different? Well, we don't have to propose something different. They merely need to agree word for word with exactly what we said. Well, that's not the way anything really works. Not in this country. And you know what we say about that.
That is not how this works!
Yes, we love just saying it that way. All right. To move on here with what Bump has been saying, Bunch, not Philip Bump, but Bunch, Will Bunch. Okay, gotcha. All right, the Bump Bunch confusion. We've all got it. Okay, I'm the only one. The cynics, he continues, are right. The resistance among Trump and his allies to any reopening of the Epstein case is surely a motivation for Johnson's obstruction, but I also can't help but wonder whether the flap over the Grijalva swearing in is also a cover for something that is much more deeply disturbing. The visual disappearance of the House for most of 3 months, and the nagging fears that the body isn't returning anytime soon. Or ever, possibly, he adds parenthetically. And well done there, is looking more and more essential to the authoritarian project of a movement that pleaded for remember this term, Red Caesar, to crush woke liberalism with unchecked executive power. That reminds me that I've got something sitting in here that Scott sent a while back about what's Curtis Yarvin up to these days. But for now, for the founders who mapped out the American experiment here, where Will Bunch writes, in Philadelphia in 1787, the House was central to their vision of what democracy looks like. And now they're gone. The idea was based on smaller districts and every 2-year elections that would closely bond its members to the people. That's why it was the People's House. It was, in other words, supposed to be the antidote to Western civilization's monarchy problem. For Trump, the absence of a functional Congress, despite the need to keep the world's largest military, essential services like air traffic control, and definitely not essential services like masked secret police forces running throughout the shutdown, makes it easier for him. Everything shifted because of an ad. Makes it easier for him to run the country by fiat. This is not a completely new problem. Over the course of my lifetime, I've watched Congress grow from a body fiercely committed to its own power and independence, especially in the early 1970s, when the House and Senate went after Richard Nixon's crimes and passed a War Powers Act aimed at restraining future Vietnams, to only caring about the fate of their party and its president. These, quote, lawmakers aren't troubled when Trump no longer rules by law, but by executive order. I'm pretty sure there's a word for a would-be strongman who rules by dictate. I'm the speaker and I'm the president, Trump has reportedly said in private conversations, according to inside sources blabbing to the New York Times. And in the supposed Speaker of the House, Trump has found the perfect vessel for his ambitions. Johnson, a soft-spoken true believer who acts like he just emerged from a Manchurian cave whenever he's asked a question he doesn't want to answer, which is pretty much all of them, seems to love the trappings and the attention of the job, even as he cedes all of the job's actual power to the president. That is a little bit odd, don't you think? This supposed budget impasse isn't only preventing the House from opening up the Epstein can of worms, but from doing any real oversight of a president who seems to have 2 or 3 Nixonian Watergates every week, including his family's shady crypto deals and even drone consulting work. And that 1973 War Powers Act, Trump and his Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, are blowing up boats and murdering persons unknown off the coast of Latin America, and the castrati up on Capitol Hill are not going to do gosh darn thing about it. With Congress sidelined, Trump, in an extreme flouting of the Constitution, is issuing dictates, that word again, on who's not getting our tax dollars, including 40 million Americans who depend on food aid to feed their families, and who is. The latter category seems to include the over-the-top drive to recruit 10,000 new masked goons for ICE, and quite tellingly, supporting the troops. Earlier this month, Trump announced that unlike other federal employees, active duty soldiers would get paid, at least for now, with $8 billion that the regime found by killing off research and development projects that had been authorized by Congress. Adding some icing on that cake, the president then claimed that an anonymous donor, quickly outed as right-wing billionaire Timothy Mellon, had donated another $130 million towards a few more hours of military paychecks. It's probably worth noting, both of these moves are almost certainly illegal, as you know, a blatant violation of anti-deficiency laws.
You have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
That's right. Anti-deficiency laws, by the way, that Congress has been passing since 1870 to prevent an administration from spending money without authorization. Yeah, there's a little bit more to this article and happening around the country and around the world, but you can at least depend on Justice Putnam to bring you most of that, with the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy coming up next. We'll see what happens tomorrow.